The Mongol conqueror, Chinggis Khan, might have been an unintentional green leader who put a dent in global carbon emissions and helped cool down the planet. Shockingly enough, those terrifying invasions may have cut down carbon emissions by 700 million tons. If you haven't already, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. When Temujin was 9, his father was murdered, and their tribal rivals banished the widow mother and her family of 5 children to fend for themselves on the harsh steppe. But Temujin's mother managed to keep most of her children alive. The family endured extreme poverty, and things got so bad that Temujin killed an older brother because he refused to share a fish with him. Temujin had an instinct for tribal politics, which he demonstrated with his exploitation of a series of tribal alliances. He used his band of freebooters to tip the balance in various rounds of tribal warfare, and eventually became a powerful warlord. For thousands of years, steppe nomads had preyed opportunistically on their settled neighbors. The nomads who grew up and lived on horseback had strategic mobility that allowed them to raid settled lands, loot, and leave before the locals could mobilize a response. In 1206, after a series of bloody wars on the eastern steppe, the nomad leader Temujin united the tribes of Mongolia under his rule. He then got himself declared Chinggis Khan, or Universal Ruler, and set out on what his shamans declared was a divinely mandated mission of a global conquest. He didn't conquer the globe, but he and his successors created the world's biggest empire until then. It still remains history's largest contiguous land empire and is second in landmass only to the British Empire. In addition to the creation of a massive Middle Ages empire, the Mongol invasions kicked off by Chinggis Khan had another global impact that was only recently examined. Per research by the Carnegie Institute's Department of Global Ecology, the Great Mongol Warlord actually cooled the planet. Not that such was his goal, or that he or anybody else back then had any notion about global warming or cooling or carbon emissions. Chinggis Khan's Mongol conquest cooled Earth because so many people were killed that it resulted in reforestation. It's a common misconception that the human impact on climate began with the large-scale burning of coal and oil in the industrial era. Humans started to influence the environment thousands of years ago by changing the vegetative cover of the Earth's landscapes when we cleared forests for agriculture. The Mongol invasions that swept across Asia, the Middle East, Russia, and Central Europe killed an estimated 40 million people. That was in a world whose population was about 400 million, which would be equivalent to almost 800 million deaths today, or more than 8 times the deaths of the World Wars I and II combined. That massive body count meant that there were significantly fewer people to engage in activities that emitted carbon. Many regions were depopulated and vast swaths of what had once been cleared and cultivated fields reverted to forests, whose trees and vegetation absorbed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Experts began their research with a global model of land cover in 800 AD. Then they examined 4 major historical events that could have impacted the climate because of reforestation after significant population declines. Those were the Mongol invasions of the 13th century, the Black Death in the 14th century, the conquest of the Americas in the 16th and 17th centuries, and the fall of Ming China in the 17th century. All of these events caused massive fatalities. The Black Death, for example, killed over 25 million people in Europe alone. However, only one of those calamities was noticed by Mother Nature: the Mongol invasions. Chinggis Khan's invasions reduced global carbon dioxide by about 0.1 part per million. It was a minor but nonetheless a noticeable and measurable effect. That was because the Mongol invasions had the greatest impact on the amount of land covered by vegetation. During short events such as the Black Death and the Ming Dynasty collapse, the forest regrowth wasn't enough to overcome the emissions from decaying material in the soil. But during the longer-lasting ones like the Mongol invasion and the conquest of the Americas, there was enough time for the forests to regrow and absorb significant amounts of carbon. The depopulation and disruptions caused by the Mongol invasions were so massive that it led to a significant drop in the amount of cleared land under cultivation. Then as now, people chopped down forests to clear land for agriculture. That automatically increased the amount of carbon in the atmosphere because vegetation stores carbon. Trees and shrubs are what scientists call carbon sinks, defined as things that absorb more carbon from the atmosphere than they release. The mass of vegetation produced by agriculture in cleared land that had once been forested is significantly less than the mass of the trees that had once occupied that land. So acre for acre, the cultivated lands store less carbon than had been stored in the forests they replaced. Not only that, but human activity on those cleared lands transformed them from carbon sinks they had once been when forested and into carbon sources that increase rather than decrease atmospheric carbon dioxide. Today, about a quarter of the net primary production on the Earth's land surface is used by humans in some way, mostly through agriculture. In the past, we've had a substantial impact on global climate and the carbon cycle, but it was all unintentional. Based on the knowledge we have gained from the past, we are now in a position to make land use decisions that will diminish our impact on climate and the carbon cycle. We cannot ignore the knowledge we have gained. Before we start on global reforestation, we first have to stop the current massive global deforestation that is stripping the Amazon rainforest and other natural carbon sinks around the world. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.